Good morning. My name is Delphine Rankin, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for SOS Children's Villages, Illinois. On behalf of the Board of Directors, our CEO, Tim McCormick, and our Racial Justice Committee, we welcome you to our second annual Women in Leadership Forum. Almost 2 years ago, in particular, most of us saw the many instances of violence, racially motivated violence and movement as we watched in despair. Our CEO, Tim McCormick, at that time encouraged us all to use our voice. At that time, the Racial Justice Committee was initiated. We thank you, Mr. McCormick. One of our first endeavors to advance our mission of inequality and racial inequality, the Racial Justice Committee formed the Women in Leadership Forum on last year. At this event, we had the opportunity to hear from 6 amazing women who graced us with their journey, their experience, and their advice on how women can move about their career paths. Today, we have back with us Dr. Jackie Sharp, who will give our opening remarks. Jackie.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome again to SOS second Women in Leadership Forum. Treat your future with respect. I am Dr. Jackie Sharp, CEO of Lakeside Community Committee, social service organization. We provide foster care case management, transitional living for non-pregnant and parenting teens, as well as pregnant and parenting teens. We also have a shelter that houses youth between the ages of 6 to 12. Well, last year, I had the honor to be a panelist at the first inaugural Women in Leadership Forum. The topic was the glass ceiling, reality or perception. I was asked the question by Ms. Delphine Rankins, what advice would I have given myself 10 years ago? My answer was, treat your future with respect, which I am happy to see that is the topic of our Women's Leadership Forum today. Treat your future with respect, meaning take pride in advancing your career. Don't be shy about communicating your dedication, your drive to move up the corporate ladder. And network, network, network. You can never get enough of networking. Whether you're in a large corporation, whether you're in a startup or at a nonprofit, you are your own best advocate for getting the position that you want. Dream beyond your job description. And I will repeat that, dream beyond your job description. Ask your colleagues, talk to your superiors, have them to explain to you how they got their roles and how their experiences, as well as how you can advance in your company. And be open and honest with them about your career aspirations. And when they share this information with you, make a plan. If you need additional education, get it. If you need certification, get certified. Work hard and develop that I can do whatever it takes attitude to get the job done. Give it your all. So, taking pride in advancing your career, demonstrating that you're up for the challenge, as well as continuing to network. To me, that is treating your future with respect. So I will turn it back over to Ms. Delphine to introduce our dynamic panelists for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. And as you can see, we're in for a treat. Dr. Sharp has already left us a few nuggets, and I can't wait to hear what the new panelists will share with you. With that, I'm going to start with the introduction of our panelists. And first, we have SOS Children's Village's board member, Angelica Alfaro.
Good morning, Angelica Alfaro. I am the Associate Director of Local and State Relations in the Office of Government Relations, as you can see here in my background, at the U of I system. Born and raised in Chicago on the West Side, first in my family to graduate from college. And when I say first, that's everyone, aunts, uncles, neighbors, cousins. And, you know, my parents having a 3rd grade and 5th grade education from Mexico, that just means so much more. And just thinking about the opportunity. So, and have dedicated my career to making sure that other people who look like me and Black and brown people from our community are afforded those same opportunities. So I spent my career working across Chicago, working on summer college programs, scholarships for thousands of families, working on policy, fundraising, community organizing, advocacy, and really just at the root of it all, focus on the fact that our communities have so much potential, so much potential. Black and brown people have so much potential. We just need those opportunities. So that's part of the work that I'm doing now and at the university as far as higher education, but really just so much more than that, and tying it back to community and to the fact that, you know, 8 years ago, I bought property just down the street from where I grew up, and I'm paying taxes in that same community and shopping locally and supporting women-owned and Black and brown businesses, et cetera, and really just see us as the ones who are going to change our communities. We have it in us, and you know, so I'm just really grateful to be here with you all today, to be on this panel, and just extra grateful to now be on the board of SOS. So I look forward to talking to you later. Thank you so much, Delphine.
Thank you, and we are glad to have you on our board and as well as a part of this panel today. Next, I welcome Michelle Bloom from Swiss Hotel. Michelle?
Good morning, Delphine, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of this fantastic conversation today. I'm among some great leaders, and I'm really excited about the discussions that we'll be having. My name is Michelle Bloom. I am the Talent and Culture Manager at the Swiss Hotel Chicago. The Swiss Hotel Chicago has had a fantastic partnership with SOS Children's Village through the years, and that's something that we truly, truly cherish. Just a little information about the Swiss Hotel Chicago. It's part of Accor Hotels, which is the largest hotel hospitality company in Europe. And we have 4 properties here in the Chicago area, soon to be 5 properties. A little bit about myself. I was born in Guatemala to a Guatemalan mother and an American father. And I had a little bit of a unique childhood and upbringing in the sense that we moved around a lot. And by the time I was 14 years old, we had lived in Guatemala, Venezuela, Mexico, Chile, Argentina. We lived in Ohio twice during that span, and finally Florida. And I was so fortunate to have that childhood because I was exposed to so many different cultures at a very young age. And the reason that we moved around so much was because of my father's job. And every time we moved to a new every time we moved to a new country, I would live in a hotel for about 2 months each time. So hotels were an essential part of my childhood. My first friends, whenever we moved to a different country, were the hotel associates that would always be so welcoming to me. And that made a huge impact in my childhood. So when it was time for me to go to college, the only thing that I could imagine studying and being involved in was hospitality. So I went to school for hospitality, graduated from Florida International University in 2011 with a degree in hotel management. And since then, I've worked in 3 different hotel companies, and I've kind of made my way through different departments in the hotel. I started off in operations, working the front desk. Then I ventured over to sales. Then I ventured over to events. So big galas and weddings and all that fun stuff. And throughout my career, I was very guest focused, making sure that the guests were looked after. But I'm very fortunate now in my current role is that I can take care of our internal guests, which are our associates. And it's my pleasure to look after them and make sure that they're being taken care of. So thank you again for having me here in this discussion, and I'm very excited.
Thank you, Michelle. Very interesting upbringing. I can't wait to see how this has impacted your leadership experience. Next, we have our next panelist, Ms. Kimberly Evans.
Good morning, everyone. I too am excited to be here to share in this wonderful dialogue today. So thanks for inviting me, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. On a personal level, I am a lifelong learner who listens with my heart, chooses to live boldly, and leads with authenticity. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in a single parent home. So my mom and my two brothers, and we were educated through Chicago public schools and, went to Illinois and Chicago colleges. And my educational background doesn't speak well in terms of what I'm doing in my career, but we'll uncover later why that actually matters, especially in terms of treating your future with respect. And I just love that title. So in the business arena, I'm privileged to serve as Northern Trust Head of Corporate Sustainability, Inclusion, and Social Impact. On any given day, I can be entrenched in complex sets of data and practices, both science and art, for stakeholders with varying and usually divergent points of view. But ultimately, all of this is in alignment with who I am at my core. My job is to deliver the win for people in our firm, in our communities, and society at large. So as I stated, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. And, I've often been heard saying, this isn't the south side of Chicago, that's like Hyde Park or Kenwood. I mean, the south side of Chicago that in Chatham has been, called parts of the ghetto at different points in time. And growing up on the south side of Chicago, there was a richness around family and community. So I absolutely love my family and friends and the communities that I grew up in. But I also know that those communities need so much support to continue to thrive and to move with the world economy. And so as Angelica said, there's so much potential there. I now get to serve in a role where it is my job to figure out what our people need inside and outside of the firm. And my job is to figure out how to help them win. So again, delighted to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
We are already getting a lot out of these ladies, but we're not done yet. We still have a few more panelists. So our next panelist is Miss Patricia McClure-Chessier. Patricia?
Hello, good morning, good morning, good morning. I am so glad to be here on today, and I certainly appreciate the invitation to be able to participate in this panel on today. I just want to share that I am the hospital interim CEO for Montrose Behavioral Health Hospital, which is located in Chicago on the north side. And I am very excited about being a part of this new venture because we know that we need beds for children for inpatient hospitalization. So I just want to share that the hospital will be opening this summer of 2022, and I'm very excited, and I'm just asking that you all would pass the word along regarding Montrose Behavioral Health Hospital. I also grew up on the south side of Chicago, and I am from the Inglewood community, and I was the first college graduate in my family as well. And I am very active in the Roseland community. My church is located in Roseland, and we participate in a lot of community service in the Roseland as well as the Auburn Gresham community. I am an active leader for the Alzheimer's Association. I serve in a volunteer capacity. And the reason why I mention that is because it's very important to me to help educate people of color, everyone, but more specifically, people of color regarding Alzheimer's and dementia, early detection, and how important all of those things are. I am the president and founder of TAD, and TAD means Trish Against Alzheimer's and Dementia. And again, to the core of my organization is to help educate others and to help them to identify the signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's, and just educating people and letting them know that there are resources available. And again, I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to our future discussion.
Thank you, Patricia. Congratulations to you and to Montrose. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
So if I can ask all of my panelists to join me. So before we get started in our conversation and our dialogue with, I'm sorry, please excuse me, our last panelist, Ms. Jamie Reed.
Thanks. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Delphine, and everyone at SOS Illinois for having me here today. On behalf of Mayor Lightfoot and the entire Chicago Department of Aviation, it's such a pleasure to participate with this esteemed panel. As Commissioner of Aviation at the City of Chicago, I have the honor of managing one of the world's busiest airport systems, comprised of O'Hare and Midway international airports. The airports typically serve more than, and I say typically because 2019 is probably our last measure of what recovery eventually will look like. And we processed about over 100 million passengers over 260 destinations. O'Hare is also one of the top trading ports in the country, processing over 2 billion tons of cargo last year alone. I've been very fortunate to serve as both an attorney and a manager across several City of Chicago departments, including planning, law, procurement, mayor's office, and aviation. This is my third time here. But as the city's chief procurement officer, I oversaw the reform efforts that brought thousands of diverse-owned businesses into the city's talent pipeline and learned the power the city contracts have to transform communities and generate economic opportunities. In 2018, I brought that passion back to the airport once again with me when I returned as the commissioner for the Chicago Department of Aviation. Our airports are regional economic engines whose capital programs can help build capacity and opportunities for diverse local businesses of all sizes. A little bit about my background. I'm also the first in my family to graduate college and also law school, and grew up in a very small town about 3 hours from Chicago and was raised by my grandparents on a farm. But I'm now very proud to call myself a Chicagoan, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, our diverse group of panelists pack the house in terms of experience and leadership. But before we get into this conversation, the dialogue with these women, I first want to let you know that we have multiple ways that you can interact with us. One, I would say if you have any questions, please enter your questions in the questions and answer forum. We will be monitoring this. And if you just want to chat among yourself, feel free to use the chat as well. So we'll get right into it. You've already heard a little bit about these 5 amazing women, and we will start out with Commissioner Reed, since I'm looking directly at her. So Dr. Sharp gave us a lot around this, our theme, treat your future with respect, when she was sharing with the audience on last year. And so my question to you, and if you would share with our audience, when you hear that phrase, what does it mean to you? And how does it resonate with you?
Yeah, well, thank you. Honestly, that is, it's a sentence that is just packed with power. And I think that respecting your future and the things that you do now, I think is something that all of us probably would look back, to our younger selves and say, hey, there are things that you should have been thinking about. And I think it's really incumbent upon women, and especially women of color, that there is that exchange of ideas and support systems, and allowing, the youth of today to really excel and to have some of the things that I think women, at least of my age, and I hate to date myself, but that we didn't have that access to those types of resources. And so to me, I think women, and at least how I grew up, very traditional on a farm. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of role models in my life. I didn't have a lot of mentors. I had a drive inside of me that God blessed me with. And I have taken that to heart and look as much as I can to giving that back to society. I owe a debt of gratitude to the city of Chicago that has given me the chance to do things that I never would have dreamed as a child of doing. I started my first job at the city of Chicago in the early 90s, and at a very entry-level position, and never would have dreamed ever that I would be leading this organization today. But it was honestly the women, and men too, throughout my career that have actually guided me and really took advantage of this fire that I had inside of me, which I never really met a job I didn't like. I always took the best out of everything, and I took chances. When somebody would say to me, do you have any real estate background? I would say, no, I don't, but I'll learn. And that eagerness to accept and risk and go out of your comfort zone is something that I think a lot of women especially are scared to do. We feel like there are traditional roles that you have to, that you should be in. And so taking a little more risk, respecting your future by being more well-rounded, because the more that you absorb and learn, the more marketable you are, the more that you're able to translate those experiences into a career and a pathway, and really find out, what your passion is. And I just want to thank SOS because all of the work that they do. My passion is very much aligned with that. I fostered my daughter, and recently in December, we adopted her. And it is just something that guides me and inspires me every day to look around to see how do we give back. And it's really incumbent upon us all.
Thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner. Congratulations. So, and listening to the introductions, I heard Commissioner Reed talk about her background and your education and upbringing, but Angelica, I've also hear a similar story in terms of your background and upbringing. And so I'm wondering what does it mean to you when you hear this, treat your future with respect?
I'm still, wow, I'm with Commissioner Reed. Hi. Commissioner Reed's my neighbor. I'm so happy to hear that. A lot of everything that she said, I was even taking some extra notes for myself. And I just also want to point out, when we are asked to be on panel lists, we're still always learning and growing. And I really feel honored to serve on this panel with you all. And I look forward to hearing your responses. I think it's just a matter, I'll keep it really simple. We just owe it to ourselves to take that chance. And I didn't learn this early on. Eventually I said, I need to be in the driver's seat. When there's an opportunity, I need to say yes, open up as many doors as possible, so then I can choose if I'm going to go through that door. And that is in the last couple years, and not being afraid to say that. I mean, my boss could be listening right now on this panel, but if another opportunity comes, I'm going to have that conversation. And I think that's about respecting myself, but also respecting the work that I'm committed to doing and taking it back to the potential that we have in our communities. And if I want to continue to serve in that way, I need to continue to take those chances and open up as many doors as possible so I could do that for others.
Thank you. So I'm hearing bold responses and taking chances and looking at the best of yourself. Kim, how do you, or how have you taken chances in your career?
Thank you, and equally honored to be here, Commissioner and Angelica, Delphine. We go back a long time, and loving already the energy that this is creating. So in terms of taking risk, I agree wholeheartedly. You have to be able to take risks. One, to know if you're good at something or not, or if you can learn something and get good at it. And it's okay to fail. I was just talking to some young professionals in my organization yesterday, and they were saying, this whole culture of, in IT or, where we are in the state of the world today, everything evolves so quickly. So you have to learn how to fail fast. And we talk about a culture of, accepting failure. And I said, well, the first thing in order for that to even work is the person has to be willing to take a risk and accept some level of failure to move forward. I kind of opened by saying that, like, my educational background doesn't necessarily match my career. So I started in college in chemical engineering. I went through 4 years of the program, decided I didn't want to do that. I got my degree in psychology. I started a career in financial services, have worked inside of financial services for the better part of 27, 28 years, and have actually worked in and managed in all of the disciplines within financial services. You better believe I was taking risks as I jumped from one thing to the next. And when I tell you all of the disciplines, there's a couple that I haven't, just because degrees. Like, I've never actually managed money, and I'm not a lawyer, but those are the only two areas. But in terms of taking those risks, I've managed, IT, big technology programs. I've managed facilities, right? Like building new buildings. I came into financial services in operations and technology. I've managed large client servicing groups, sales, business strategy. Every time I moved from one thing to the next, it wasn't about having 100% assurance that I would be successful. It was treating my future with respect to say, I owe it to myself to try it. I owe it to myself to see if I can be good at it. And guess what happened? Every time I leaped forward, I gained some additional experiences and skills, whether I wanted to stay there or not, that I could carry with me into the next thing. And so, I would tell anybody this, very, very entry level position. I started in financial services with the college degree, and now finding myself in the C-suite, reporting to the CEO, managing our strategy for ESG, sustainability, inclusion, and social impact forward. If I can do it, this little Black girl from the South Side of Chicago, I am telling you, you can do it. You just have to get out of your comfort zone, as the commissioner said.
Thank you, Kim. I think one of the, in terms of taking risks and making mistakes, I think often, there are women that feel like they have to be strong and accurate and kind of know everything. Kim, for you on your path, did you have that conversation with yourself? Did you have to, my husband always tells me, just, stay on the path. Don't let that other person, don't let yourself, take you down that road. What was that like for you?
Oh my gosh, I have the bumps and bruises to prove to you that the path was not perfect. It was not straight. I often talk about my career. It looks so good on paper. Like, if you read bio and all of that, you would think like, oh my gosh, she has it all together and must have had it together from the day she stepped in. Absolutely not. I did not have to be perfect, but my support system had to be pretty close to perfect. And what I mean by that, and I heard some of this in the introductions, Dr. Sharp said it, I had to build a network of people who could support me through my learning journeys, through the ups and downs when I failed, who was going to be there to help pick me up and help me see beyond where I was, as well as, you know, who was going to be helping me think about and talk about the next opportunity or where I could take my skills next. So I never had to be perfect. I never had to be perfect, but I had to build a pretty perfect network. So I give the credit to the people who have supported me, who have pushed me and propelled me, and those who have even pulled me along the way. They were perfect. I was not.
Very humble. Thank you. Michelle, I see you nodding. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond as well. And then I want you to take us into our next question in terms of, did you imagine yourself in the leadership role that you're in? And I think you did, you shared in your introduction, but please, you know, if you want to respond to this one as well as your imagination in this position.
Absolutely. And I was nodding my head because everything that Kimberly was saying was resonating with me, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. Treating our future with respect really sparks so much excitement in me and inspires me, because we're really putting in the groundwork right now for what we want our future to be, what we dream for our future to be. And I know that I owe it to the Michelle 20, 30 years down the line to put in the work right now. And as Kimberly mentioned too, to make those mistakes. I think that the thought of making mistakes can be paralyzing, especially at the beginning of your career. And I know myself, I had the bad tendency of comparing myself to somebody else and thinking, well, they didn't make those mistakes, so why am I making those mistakes? And it's important to know that the way we grow is through mistakes, and everybody's journey is different. Everybody's path to success is different. So you can't be comparing your mistakes and your trials and your tribulations to somebody else's, because they're frankly just going to be two completely different paths. But it's also exciting to think of our future with respect, not only in our own regards, but also to building a future for others and to pull them up along with us and our respect. I want to make sure that when it's my turn to move on, I'm leaving a better environment than I arrived into. And that's something that I really want to strive for, you know, the rest of my career. And the next question, as far as did I know I wanted to be a leader early on in my career, I graduated all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go into the hotel industry. And I did have the dream of being a leader, but I had no idea how to get there. So that was the ultimate dream up here, but I didn't know what the whole path leading up to that was going to be. And it took time. It took time. It took experience. It took making those mistakes. It took asking for help to get a clear idea of what my path is going to be like. And again, my path is different from other people's paths, but I'm happy with what I've accomplished so far. And I feel like I'm well on my way there.
Patricia, what about you? When you were, you know, going through, I think, Bogan High School, kind of looking at your roots, Bogan High School, Eastern Illinois University,
Yes.
and in this industry of healthcare, did you have those dreams, you know, when you were younger?
You know, it's interesting. So I would say for me, for leadership, it really kind of happened organically. At a very early age, I had a lot of responsibilities. I had it was four children that was in the home between my mom and dad, and my parents depended on me for a lot of things. And I was that girl in Inglewood. When school was over, I wanted to have school again. So I had school underneath the porch, and I assigned homework. And when the kids on the block didn't do their homework, I was trying to discipline them, and I was writing letters to their parents and telling them how they needed to do, you know, how they needed to do their work. And so I would just have to say that it happened for me organically in terms of me being a leader. However, along the way, I was very fortunate to have some very good mentors, and those mentors encouraged me how important it was for me to prepare and plan for my future. And so I can remember even when I graduated from Eastern Illinois University with a college degree, my role was I started out as a direct care provider for people with intellectual disabilities. And I would tell you that was a tremendous experience for me, because even with being in the C-suite today, it gives me a better understanding, and I'm more in touch about what is happening on the units with our patients. So I come from very humble beginnings. I appreciate the fact that I was able to go from one level of leadership to another, because for me, that really helped to develop me and help me to, to where I am today. And then also too, I will also add that I appreciate the experiences that I had in college, because the experiences that you have in college, it also helps to prepare you for your place of employment. And I would also have to say too, I agree with a lot of what our panelists have said, that it's important to take risk. And also too, when you're in a position and when your employer is asking you to do a little bit more, or they're asking you to help out in departments, in other departments, what I learned from that experience is I was making an investment in myself. So yes, I was helping out the organization, but at the end of the day, I was making an investment in myself, because that allowed me to learn other skills that I did not have. And so I try to encourage even our younger leaders, when you are given the opportunity to learn new skills, don't always put a dollar sign to it. That's an investment that you're making in your career as well as in your character.
Thank you. Actually, that you're spot on in terms of our next direction in terms of investing in yourself. And maybe you can go ahead and answer this question for us, Patricia. In terms of professional development, can you share with our attendees the types of professional development, whether it was formal, informal, just to help, individuals to figure out what some of the things that they could do to kind of spark and take charge of their own professional development and growth?
Okay, so I would say a lot of my professional development, it was, for some was formal, but majority of it throughout my career was informal. I read various books on leadership and how I wanted to become a leader, and how I wanted to, what type of leader I wanted to be. And I just didn't read about leaders in my particular field. I read about leaders in all fields, because leadership is something that you can apply to any industry. And so with me reading those books, that helped me to develop myself as a leader. I always wanted to have a mentor, and it's very important to have a mentor. I wanted people around me who was going to be open and honest about how they felt that I was doing, areas that I needed to improve in. And I knew that I had to be open to receiving the feedback. Some other things I would say is I belong to a lot of professional associations. I would encourage anyone, like I belong to the American College of Healthcare Executives. And so we receive magazines, and those magazines, I mean, they have a wealth of knowledge that will keep you informed, and it will, educate you on how you can improve yourself. So I would encourage any young person, older or like, of how important it is to be connected, to network, to belong to these various professional associations. As well as another thing that I want to say that I feel is also important is community service. Community service is very, very important, and that keeps you in tune to what is going on in the community. So it's very important for us to be connected. And then I would just also say, you want to try to attend, as they have like a lot of free trainings, a lot of free webinars that you can attend as well. So everything is not, I can't do this and I can't do that because there's a cost. There's a lot that's out here. There's a lot of knowledge that you can gain out here without having to pay nothing. So that's how I would say I made an investment in my career and what I did in regards to professional development.
Thank you, Patricia. You shared a lot. So, Angelica, when I think about, some of the your background and what I know about you in terms of the areas that you've been involved in, education and community and politics, how have all of those roles helped you, today in terms of not just leadership, but just preparing and treating your future with respect?
I'll say that just finding the common ground of that all and being rooted and I keep saying this and I'll always keep saying it is back to the potential of our communities, right? So just taking from there was a point in my career where it was a matter of owning my skill set and realizing that I can apply it to anything, right? And I've been in my career now for about 15 years since I graduated from the University of Illinois in Urbana. And, it maybe I would say in full transparency, in the last couple of years is when I realized that. And it was just like a light switch that went off. And looking back at my career and looking at the fact that I have been involved in education, public health, mental health, violence prevention, environmental advocacy, economic development, and all of that still ties back to community, right? And realizing that in government, without community, there is no government. And that not everyone sees it that way, right? So that's why I'm in these spaces to make sure of that. And it does tie back to treating our future with respect. And I said it before because I respect our communities, right? I don't want to say struggle, but separating the professional and the personal, or the professional is personal. So that's that extra baggage that we're bringing into this work because we bring our heart to our work. And not everyone does, but that doesn't stop us. But I think more, I would say, and I know we'll talk a little bit about mental health as part of the other questions maybe, but that's part of it too, is being able to acknowledge that, being able to talk about it. And you're seeing that more these days. So I just also, and it showed up in this answer, right? That's just what it is. So I wanted to point that out as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a balance, personal and professional. And, to be honest, we want to treat our personal life with respect too. And that's where we need to find that balance so that, we can be better, at both, right? So let's talk about the professional development plan, because we've heard Patricia talk about, some of the things that she's used in order to help. Have you ever created a professional development plan as you thought about coming into your career? And if so, what does your professional development plan look like, and what can you share with our attendees as they're looking to draft theirs?
I wasn't sure that question was for me.
Yeah, it's for you. Yep.
I'm still crafting my professional development plan. It's interesting because when you start a new job, for example, like you're trying to see what opportunities are available. But what I learned is thinking outside of that. And even with Patricia sharing about reading books and seeing what's out there and what other organizations. I was part of a group called Bonfire Women that was focused on elevating and being able to negotiate and whatever skill sets you need to go to the next level. And then also part of the Chicago Latino Caucus Leadership Academy with, they had insights assessment, like the green, the yellow, the blue. That was the most real assessment I've ever had. And it's vulnerable. You're seeing your strengths, your weaknesses. You're able to share that document with your boss so they know how to best manage you, et cetera. So it's more so thinking outside the box and figuring out what professional development works for you. And I'm took notes right here, community service as professional development. So I know I said a lot of bit of everything because I'm still navigating what that looks like. And it depends where you are in your career. It depends what job you're at. But just having that open mind to see that there's diverse ways to receive that professional development.
Yeah, I agree. Commissioner Reed, what about you in terms of your professional development plan? I know we're hearing a lot more about, plans now, as we look at the great resignation and, individuals, both male and female, are finding their way. How important is that professional development plan?
I think it's more important now than ever. And I think that the resources are out there. Again, I didn't have one. I wish I would have. I probably should write one now, but it's to me, because you're always learning, you're always absorbing as much as you can. But I do think having the focus and intention on a plan that puts you with like-minded individuals, exposes you to and I think it was Patricia or Kim that talked about the importance of network. I mean, these are things we need to do, and make sure that you are surrounding yourselves with people that are like-minded. I'm a big believer in community service as well. Looking out for communities that have been disinvested in, people that didn't believe they had a voice. I love to, bring them into the fold and show them that there is a place for everyone. That and do that in a way. The one thing I suppose I wanted to back up and say is, throughout your entire career, if you don't have honor and integrity, then you will miss out on so many opportunities, because even if you don't have the experience that is necessary for a job, I think when people are thinking of individuals, the first thing that comes to mind is, that person acts with integrity. They can actually, we can trust them to learn this and what. So that is something very important to me, especially being in government as long as I have. I will be celebrating 29 years and have been very blessed again in the city of Chicago. And it has afforded me the opportunity to do a variety of things. But all along the way, I met those folks that really helped pave the way for me to realize, what a future could be. I never had, I went to school, I had a criminal justice degree, and went to law school, and thought I was going to end up doing international law and all kinds of things. And your path is never what you might expect. That does not negate the fact that you need to have that goal just in case, but also be open and receptive to those sort of winds and turns as that comes, and not to be scared to take that chance.
Thank you. Before we shift into another area, I just want to make sure that I leave, time, and space for anyone else to jump in and respond to that question or any of the questions that came before that.
They were all answered beautifully.
I'd like to share on the professional development path. So I look at professional development. My professional development came in a couple different ways. It came through formal or organized training and development. It came through on the job, like, when people think about training programs or education and all of that, you just cannot forget, like, you can learn as much as you can learn outside of sitting in the seat. Then you got to eventually sit in the seat and do the job in order to learn from it. But I also think about those other two arenas that have been touched on. One is I inherently, it's in my DNA, I have what's called that hustle gene. So Delphine knows this, right? I have picked up side gigs throughout my career in financial services, developing skills, honing abilities, having different experiences, so that I bring that into my, professional space. And then the other one, which has been touched upon, is serving, making sure that you are using your skills and experiences to benefit others, where, like, it's a nonprofit service, it's, other community work or whatever, because that enriches you in a way and it develops you in a way that you really can't get that same development if you're being paid for. So I think about those 4 ways of professional development and moving through them consistently, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, but moving through them. But I mean, the hustle gene is important. So,
all right, you heard it here. The hustle gene, the grind is real. So all of the panelists are shaking their heads, so they're all familiar with that term. So those terms. So I want to go into, we have a couple of questions in the Q&A area, and I want to take a couple of them ladies, if you don't mind. So the first question, let me go back to it, is from one of our board members, Mark Wright. He asked the question, what can we do to remove stigma around inclusion of women and minorities in business? And I'll read that to any one of the panelists if you want to respond.
The first thing, and this just happens to be the seat that I'm sitting in, but I've always been very passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have practiced it when I've gotten these big roles and leading businesses forward. The stigma can only live to the degree that the people in the room allow it to live. So when you are in the room and you hear it, you see it, you sniff it, stamp it out, get rid of it. I was just having a conversation with someone, and we were, it was one of those promotion discussions, and it was, I'm not sure she's quite ready. So I asked the question, okay, so here's a list of the guys you think are ready. Tell me what they have. Tell me what she has. Sounds like they have the same thing. Why is she not ready and he is ready, right? So the stigma lives when people in the room allow it to live, and you can get rid of it in one conversation or one promotion discussion, but you have to do it one at a time, right? That's not something that can truly be scaled, but I make it my business, whatever room I'm in, when I sniff it out, when I hear it, when I see it, take care of it then, because you don't get a chance to go back and do that.
Just to add on to that, again, and that is leading by example. When you lead in that direction, that will get stamped out just organically, because if you don't allow it to live, it will not. And so you have to be very intentional in the way that you approach promotions and looking at hiring. And when you talk about, even in government, I mean, some of the restrictions we have, there are ways to be creative to make sure that we are allowing and casting the widest net possible, and that all are welcome. And I just could not agree with Kimberly more. And I think that, obviously her being in the position she is, that is going to resonate throughout the entire departments or organization.
And go ahead, I'm sorry.
I can also add too, because I've been in this situation several times throughout my career. And I would just say too, also for women, you don't want to, as a woman, you don't want to use that as an excuse for certain things either. So as a woman, you want to make sure that you present yourself in a professional manner, that you present yourself as being strong, present yourself, like you're in charge. So I think a lot of it also have to do with how we carry ourselves too, as women. Will also kind of help remove some of those stigmas.
Okay, we have a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to go over a few more. So the next question is, how do you find your voice while working hard to show your worth as a woman in a male-dominated work world? That one is a lot to uncover in that particular one. So who wants to take a stab at that one?
I'll just say, I think that, it's a delicate balance. I agree with Patricia. If you come on too strong either way, unfortunately, women, if you're really strong, then they're intimidated by you. If you're really weak, then they're going to walk all over you. And so there is this balance, and you got to find out. One thing that I think also, aside from an integrity and honor, is just that humility. Don't ever let folks think that, oh, I know it all and I should have this job, or I am, because it is a little bit of humility goes a long way too. And it is a delicate balance, especially today. I think, young women coming up have a really big challenge, because there's such opportunities, probably more resources than ever before, more opportunities than ever before, but you got to figure out the right way to balance all of those external forces that, can work against you. And so what I would say is, back to keep your plan, your goals access your mentors. Don't listen to just one person telling you, like, you go in there and tell them that you deserve that job. Whoa, yes, I do, but let's resonate on that. Let's think about it. And let's talk to some other folks. I have always found the best advice is, to me, I treat my job like a democracy, right? I'm going to take as much input, and then I'm going to have to take it all and make a decision. And whatever decision, it may be right or wrong, it's okay, but it's an informed decision. When I left the farm at a very young age, my grandfather looked at me and said, wherever you end up in life is exactly where you're supposed to be. As long as you are approaching it with that, take as much information in, process it, and then act. And wherever you end up, that's where you're supposed to be. And it's very liberating, because it's like, this mistake that I made is going to teach me or help me not make a bigger one. So failure is not the end of anything. It's a good lesson to say, well, I won't do that again, or I won't listen to that one again. But you got to keep moving forward and just have positive attitude.
Right. I would also say, I know in my career, I had to also be strategic. I can remember the first time I went from being a leader in outpatient services and I went to inpatient services. And I remember how intimidated I was working with the physicians. I was very intimidated. And so I think about, and it was a male dominant, environment. And so I had to really understand the culture. And then I had to at least find one of the physicians who I knew that I had something in common with, and who I was able to reach and kind of share with them what some of my goals were. If they had daughters, then I was able to, share the fact that you have a daughter, I have a daughter, etc. I was able to find that commonality. But what I want to say, what I think that really helped was that I knew that I had to start off small. And I knew that, I couldn't go in saying, I want to do this whole and, this big project. I had to kind of introduce myself and introduce what I could do small. And then with me having that other male person as my support, then that individual was able to speak more on my behalf and was able to share what I brought to the table. And so I know some out there would say, well, why do we have to do all of that? Is it fair? No, it's not. But I'm just saying that that's what, I had to do in order to be respected, in that environment. And then eventually, everything was fine.
Patricia, I would like to double down on that a little bit too, just around finding your voice. So one, we really do have to know what our voice is. Sometimes I feel a little bit like using that voice or using that term can be a bit overused, because people will have a reaction to something and they think that's their voice and they share it. And then when the conversation ensues or the challenges start coming, you realize, like, wait, I've stepped in it right now. I don't even really think that's where I'm supposed to be, right? So knowing your voice and knowing your position is most important. But Patricia, what you were saying about, developing the allies along the way, sometimes your voice is not the voice that should be carrying the message at that particular time. So I think about it in terms of what is the ultimate goal? Mm-hmm. How do we get there in the quickest way? And sometimes that's going to be my voice, but sometimes through the allies that I've built, it's going to be my voice. You know how it is. Sometimes somebody can in the room, say something, and it's done. Yep. They exit left and everybody's off to the next thing. So know your position, know who shares your view and shares your goals, and make sure that you have developed those relationships and built those allies so that you're not the one overusing your voice, and that your voice, when you do use it, it is actually impactful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Michelle, you wanted to say something.
Kimberly, exactly what you just said. I was going to say that, as women, we know our voice, but we also know when to support each other and when to pass over the microphone to somebody else to speak for us. Not to speak for us, but to speak what needs to be said. So Kim, 100% back up what you just said.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on to a couple of other questions. Let me take this one in. Talking about having to take risk. How did you take the risk in your career or personal development and not feel like you were losing yourself completely? Oh, wow. That's actually a really good question. Really good question.
One of the things, go ahead.
I'll be very quick. I felt the opposite, actually. I felt like I was finding myself when I took that risk.
Yes. Thank you.
So I would just, one of the things that I wanted to add, and I'm going to tie it in with this, is I think it's very important how we participate in strategic plans on our job. I think it's important for us to have a strategic plan. And of course, you're not going to do everything, and everything is not going to go, the way that you may want it to. But the same way, when you look at a strategic plan for your employer, if you have a strategic plan for your career, and you have a mission statement for your career, and you have a vision for your career, but with you having that strategic plan, it's okay to take chances, just like a corporation would. It's okay to take chances, and that's all it is. You took the chance, it didn't work. Okay, now you're going to come back to the table and you're going to plan something else. And so someone said earlier, the best way to learn is from taking risks and accepting that you're gonna make some mistakes, but know at the end you're gonna be okay and you're gonna be a better professional because of that mistake that you made. And so you're gonna be fine.
I would just say, find your why. Doing any of it at any particular point in time, find your why. I tell this story, this is appropriate, it's still Women's History Month. My mom has been the most significant influence on my life. And my mom was a welder. So she could not teach me corporate America. She could not teach me, financial services, but taught me how to deal with people. And, when I think about the struggles that my mom had, raising me and my two brothers by herself, again, South side of Chicago, sometimes on public assistance and sometimes not, it was very hard for her. My why at 6 years old became, when I saw my mom, we would go to the grocery store and I saw my mom have to put things back in the, on the shelf or back in the buggy because we couldn't, the cart, I'm dating myself, but put it back in the cart because we couldn't afford, most of the time what she was putting back were things for herself. And at 6 years old, I remember seeing this repeatedly, and I made a deal with myself. If I could ever do a job, I don't care how dirty the job was, but if I could ever do a job to make enough money so my mom never had to put anything back on herself, I would do it. That why has carried me through some pretty hurtful times in my career, hurtful times in my life. But I am telling you today, my mom is a spoiled brat, and she absolutely deserves to be. But I moved through the risks. I moved through the failures. I moved through what was some pretty unbearable things that, one of your board members said, women, Black women, we don't want you here, or we're not going to make it easy for you to be here. But my why was stronger than all of that. So I would just advise, find your why, because if you're willing to give up on it too quickly, then you don't know your why yet.
Well said, well said. Lots of thank yous and gratitude and appreciation for all the nuggets and the information that is shared. So here's another question. Was there ever a time in your life where you felt unsure about your next step in life, whether it was career-wise, education, and if so, what steps did you take to figure out what that right decision was for you? I think that kind of goes to what you were just saying, Kim. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little more.
Yeah, I think when you're thinking about that next step, I remember there was a point in my career journey where I was like, I don't know if I should do this because I don't know what's next, and I don't know. And I remember Oprah Winfrey in one of her programs coming on and saying, you know what, you actually don't have to have the next 5-10 years mapped out. You got to know what the next move is, because things are going to shift enough that if your next move wasn't exactly what you hoped it would be, or if your next move wasn't the right move, you can move again. And that gave me so much comfort. And actually, when I look at my career now, my career journey and all of the hustle things that I've done on the side, that has really led me to try things, to use my career as kind of an exploratory lab. And so just getting over the fear that whatever I do next has to be all right, has to be perfect, has to be, the be all end all. It doesn't. Get enough information, gather your facts, talk to enough people, as Commissioner said, talk to a few other people, know what you can know, step out, make the move. And if it's not right, I remember I did this a couple of times in my career, but you know what I was doing on the side? I had the exit plan. I had the exit strategy going in parallel with the thing if it didn't work out. So your next move doesn't have to be the last move. So leap.
Right.
That's true. I would also like to add to what was very helpful to me when I experienced that in my career, again, was having a mentor. And so for me, it was my executive director at the time. I was in graduate school and I was pursuing a master's in psychology. And I ended up having to withdraw from school because my mother had Alzheimer's and her disease had progressed. But anyway, long story short, I remember talking to my executive director about it at the time, who was really my mentor. And I said to him, I said, I really don't know if I'm going to go back and continue to pursue my master's in psychology. And it was him that said to me, he said, Patricia, I really think that you need to go into business. And so I was struggling because I said, but I enjoy working with people with intellectual disabilities, so on and so forth. And then he explained to me, he said, Patricia, he said, you can continue to do that. He said, but you can do it on a higher level on a higher level, and your scope and the impact that you could make would be bigger. And so I say that to say that a lot of times with us having good mentors, they can see something in us that we can't see ourselves. And I can't tell you how many times I think back and I say to myself, God, I thank you for Dennis Rainier, because he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time.
Well said. One more question, and then we'll move on to another area. I think that, so here's the next question from the group. How do you keep your team motivated despite conflicts and obstacles as a leader?
I'll jump in that one. Working in hospitality, as we all know, the pandemic was devastating for several industries. And unfortunately, the hospitality industry really took grunt of it. And we're coming in a recovery period right now, which is really exciting. But at the same time, a lot of our associates are understandably so a little bit traumatized coming out of it. And there was a lot of layoffs, a lot of furloughs. I myself was furloughed twice during the pandemic. So it's very important right now that we communicate clearly the why to our associates, build relationships, genuine relationships, and show that you're there with them every step of the way. That's putting in the work with them. That's helping them see the big picture, and our success is all shared. And above all, though, it's building those relationships. I mean, here at the Swiss Hotel, I'm so fortunate to have joined, and we have a family. There's people that have worked here for 30 years, and they consider this their home. And during the pandemic, unfortunately, we had to temporarily say goodbye to some of them. But bringing them back and building those connections and genuinely welcome them has really helped us move forward in our success here.
And I'll just say, I think ditto everything Michelle just said, and also listening to them, making sure people feel like that they have a voice and that they're being heard. I think that's very important. And there's a lot of old school sort of, you're not allowed to talk to your bosses, you know, and I get that. But there's a way to do that, which is non-threatening, create an environment that is safe for people to come into. We had a contest here during the pandemic because, again, we never shut down. We were very fortunate. We didn't lose anybody. Our airports continued to operate, obviously at very low levels of activity, but we continued to work. And one of the things we started was hey, CDA, what do you say? And we put an ideas contest out for our entire department and said, no matter who you are, you guys have been doing this for a long time. So tell me what you would tell someone to say if there was one thing that you would fix about the organization, what would it be? And I was just thrilled at the participation levels that we had. And we had a sit down with all of the folks that had submitted the ideas. We picked the top 10. We are implementing them. That gives them a pride of ownership. The other thing I would say is make sure that you're educating continually your workforce. A lot of times people get into the, you know, I just do this one area. I'm in invoicing, I'm in procurement, I do construction. I want to make sure that they understand the mission of the entire organization. For example, our airport's going through major capital developments. The last thing I want is one of our, you know, folks that perhaps just works on the airfield to say, oh, I didn't even realize we were building new terminals in this. I want them to feel empowered and part of the organization. And I think lifting up their voices in unique ways and non-threatening ways is something that, you know, and leading by example, obviously, is something that I think is important for an agency to have that family feel and trust, and really happy people work harder.
Yeah, I think someone else in the chat said, express appreciation.
Yes.
You know, that's always helpful. Okay, we have more questions in the chat, but we're gonna switch gears just a little bit. And we're gonna move into, and I think Mark kind of started us off, you know, with the question that he asked, but I'm gonna ask some more specific questions as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So in 2021, we heard accelerated conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, with more prevalent, you know, interactions and things that were happening in the media, including social media. How has this impacted your role as women in leadership, and what can be learned from this today? So who wants to start with this one?
I'll go ahead and take a stab. So I believe it's so important to be having these conversations. As women in leadership, it wasn't too long ago that we ourselves didn't have a seat at the table. And now that we're there, now that we're at the table, it's our job to make more space at the table. And I also think as leaders, we need to know when to stop and listen. And we need to know when to pass the microphone and amplify voices that have been historically ignored or overlooked for absolutely no good reason.
Yes, well said.
I'll just say every organization, whether you're a governmental agency, a corporation, or a not-for-profit, benefits from diverse workforce that brings fresh ideas and approaches. I think we've seen this as women have gained leadership roles in places where they had little presence before, but that's overdue to highlight, you know, how important it is to develop a workforce that looks like Chicago and all of our communities. And we know that when we hire people to join our teams, we have tremendous impact. When we also contract and build businesses that hire people from the community and invest in our communities. And just as our workforce benefits from these diverse voices, our organizations benefit when we invest in diverse companies of all sizes to build opportunities for these businesses to grow. But that really does take work, and it takes intention to reach out to them and to hear them and to make sure that they know that there is room for them. That's something I've been very proud to, you know, work with these topics. When I was in procurement for 10 years, I got to actually impact the way that the city was doing business. And I'm very lucky that, you know, no one understands the power of procurement better than our mayor, Mayor Lightfoot. You know, she has a vision of this city that is more equitable and inclusive, and it's something that really does guide and inspires the work that we do each and every day.
Were you going to say something, Kim?
I just wanted to say, wow, Commissioner, that was absolutely Like, so I'm being an audience member right now.
It's okay. I mean, as we see in the chat, we are all gaining and learning from this conversation. This is a part of my personal professional development, is to be in the room with other women who have experienced and are experiencing, you know, leadership and just being a woman in the workplace. It helps me to pivot in ways that, you know, I never knew I had to. So this is a part of all of our professional development. One. So anything else, Kim, you want to share?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, we saw over the last couple of years, from a woman's perspective, we saw over 3 million women leave the workforce. And so when I think about how that's been labeled, or the last couple of years have been labeled in terms of the Great Resignation, I actually, that doesn't resonate with me. What resonates with me is more of the she session, because resignation really kind of indicates choice. And I think if you have 3 million women leave the workforce, it wasn't about choice. They were pushed out, they were forced out because we didn't have the right environments to support them. So I love what Michelle said, you know, we have to be aware of when it's time to pass the mic, or when it's time to look, you know, for the next woman and build the next woman, make sure that she has a safe place to be, and she can be productive. So I think when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of times what happens is we stop at the diversity, the representation. Those are the facts, but how we facilitate the facts is the equity, and how we feel about, you know, being there, our sense of belonging. That's the inclusion, and that's the ultimate outcome that all of the you know, that would benefit companies, is the inclusion. But you can't stop at the diversity, at the representation piece. And so I think that's what has happened. And so when we think about, you know, this is whether it's government, community organizations, or, you know, public organizations and institutions, we have to move the conversation from just diversity to really what is going to provide the most inclusive environment. Because 3 million left the workforce, about 40% of them have come back into the workforce. We got to reach out to get the rest of them to come back, because I can't imagine a world where half of the population is not participating in the innovation, the economy, building our, you know, our future forward. So yeah, those are my views on women and what we have to do to surround them.
Can I just add to that? I'm going to go ahead and quote our the first African-American woman elected to Congress, Congresswoman Shirley Grisham. If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. But I would say bring two, because you have to bring, I mean, that just speaks to me. I actually have it up in my office, this quote, and it's just a reminder. And even seeing Jackie in the chat, sharing these gems in there about being intentional. And even in the world of Zoom, I've been told that there was too many people there. Maybe we couldn't add that other woman because there was just, I'm like, it's a Zoom meeting. We will figure it out. And if it's not, like, even in person, like always thinking about the inclusion piece. So I even, I saw that someone putting inclusion ahead of diversity. I think because we say DEI, it becomes this thing that we're just kind of here. Sometimes you have to pause and break it down and say each one of them separately and mix up the order, because we have to continue to prioritize and name things. And I think that's part of being intentional, is calling it out. And that takes courage. And sometimes you're the only one saying it. But back to what Kimberly said about having your allies say it too, right? That's a community organizing tactic. And I've even texted my white counterpart. I was like, okay, you need to say this because I said it in the last meeting. So being able to do that and getting others on board as well.
Yeah, someone else, that same person, Angelica, said we need to get past the buzzword. And I think what you said is that we need to break that down. What does that mean? in terms of DEI. So we have lots of questions, and really appreciate, everybody is just really thankful for all the information. You have a lot of lifelong learners, that have attended with us. So well over 74 people are with us today, hearing, the experience and the journey of all of you. And as we come down to, just the last few minutes of our time together, which I have so enjoyed, there are a couple of questions, that we want to get to as it relates to the historic moment that's happening, right? We all know that Judge Brown Jackson is right now is going through confirmation, and this is Women's Month, but I say this is women's time, for all the right reason, but for no other reason, I want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time about our thoughts on what's happening at this moment. The first Black female to join the Supreme Court. And so I want to start, as we do our closing out, I want to give everybody an opportunity, but there's one last question that I want to propose to you before we close out. That question is, how do you see the hearings of the Supreme Court nominee, Judge Brown Jackson, as a sign of hope? Yet also how unfair those who choose to attack her on her work. So I want to put that question out there first.
So I would just say, for me, again, it helps, all young girls. It gives them hope that they can really become whatever it is that they want to be, which I think is very important. A lot of times, children do have to see people who look like them to give them more hope. And so, so because of that, I'm happy, just as an African-American woman, to see her being appointed in this position, as well as the fact of there's some young girl or even young boy, a person of color, who is going to be hopeful that they can be whatever they want to be.
Yeah,
go ahead, Commissioner.
I was just going to echo that. And
Sure.
my daughter, we've talked about this. I've showed her, and the saying that was before COVID that I remember we've kind of lost, but you can't be it if you can't see it. And that's what you need to have, is you got to see it. And that is going to speak volumes that there has been a voice missing, a perspective missing from the court. And this is just making a well-rounded sort of diverse in thought, and diverse in experience coming to that court. And I'm just could not be more proud to be in this country at this time, recognizing that, the strides that we have made and to be where we are. And it is Women's Year. It is not month. It is Women's Year.
Yeah, I think just in terms of the last part of that question, I think it was, how unfair, is it to those that attack her work? And I think that's one of the things, hearing all the feedback and the commentary, the one thing that stood out to me when I compare the hearings from previous justices, I had to hear about her as a woman caring for her children, and almost, how are you going to balance that? That's the part that I thought about last night and first thing this morning. That was among the other things of free speech and critical race and her approach. But the one thing that resonates with me is woman shouldn't be any different because we have to work, that she has to explain how she's going to balance her livelihood and her position as a wife and a mother. So.
And regardless of how unfair the process is, and we live this esteemed panel has lived this on a day-to-day basis, right? No matter how unfair the process is, we got to keep our eye on the prize and and see her through to confirmation so that she can get to the court and then use those perspectives so that maybe the next woman, Black woman, woman of color, person of color doesn't have to experience it, right? So I think sometimes, yes, we can see live and in color how imperfect people are and how imperfect this process is. But I want to keep us, focused on pushing through to the end, because while I have hope that she was nominated, I have hope around the fact that she was nominated. I'm like, sister, go through whatever you got to go through to get to the seat. And she is handling it brilliantly.
Yes.
So
Class and poise.
that's the hopeful part. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. This is what we do. In the comments say we need to keep our eye on the prize. So as we come down to the last few minutes, I want to give each of my panelists an opportunity to just give some closing statements. So I'll start with Kim. I'm looking right at you. Why don't you close us out with your thoughts?
Thank you, Delphine, and thank you to all of you. You just don't know how much this conversation has enriched me today. But what I would leave you all with is treating your future with respect. It's all about you. It's all about your future. Don't be afraid to lean into the fact that it is about you. This is the thing that is about you. And think about it from, I think about this from 3 perspectives. Your state of readiness. What do the kids say today? Like, I don't have time to get ready. I stay ready. Make sure that you are readying yourself all the time. There's a level of resilience that you will need. So you're going to have to take the bumps and bruises. You're going to have to go through some things and reinvent yourself, but it's okay because you will recover. And then relevance. Make sure that whatever you're doing, you're keeping yourself relevant. You're looking at trends and you're seeing around the corner. And to me, that is the best way to treat your future with respect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. Michelle.
It has been such an honor and a pleasure to be on this panel alongside Angelica, Kimberly, Patricia, Commissioner Jamie. I have taken so many notes, so thank you very much for that. And let's treat our future with respect and let's enjoy the ride leading up to it. While we're taking those steps forward, let's always remember to also keep a hand stretched out to help lift and inspire the next generation of leaders. Thank you again.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed.
It's sort of, I just wrote down, I don't have time to get ready, I stay ready. I love that. I love that. Now I've got a whole page of notes here for myself. So again, thank you to every one of you. One thing I want to say is, it's that Frederick Nietzsche, somebody said, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I totally believe that in the way that, you will go through trials and tribulations, and all that does is you have to take that and understand that that is going to make you stronger. It is going to give you more ammunition to deal with the next problem that comes up. Anybody that you think, you look out there and you see these folks and say, they've had it easy, they've never done, we don't know that. And everyone is going through things, they hide them differently. So we should celebrate those challenges and really, take that to heart, that this is making you stronger. It is going to make you more well-rounded as you go into your career, whatever that may be. And then obviously take advantage of folks that say, hey, give me a call if you need anything. I call them. And so I tell that to everyone. You can call me if there's anything that I've said today that you want to know more about, or if there's any way that I can help to elevate our communities. That is not just my job, it's my passion. Thanks.
Thank you. Angelica?
So actually, I will share words that are not my own, but also I have printed near my desk as well, and I'll put it in the chat so you all can keep it. You are eternal. You are neither here nor there, but everywhere. You carry the hood in your veins and the academia in your heart. You have not forgotten where you come from, but have learned and earned your way into spaces not meant for you, spaces that are uninviting to your kind. You are poderosa like that. Your vocabulary is vast and your wit is sharp. You are unstoppable.
I love it. It's in the chat. Thank you so much. And lastly, Ms. Patricia. Did we lose you, Ms. Patricia?
Sorry about that. This is Patricia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Again, I just want to say I'm very grateful to be a participant on the panel. I certainly learned a lot from the panelists. So I took a lot of notes myself. I want to encourage that young person out there that if they haven't developed a vision and a mission statement for their life, or I would say for their career, I would encourage them to do that. I think it's important for them to prepare for their future and to plan to be the person that they want to become tomorrow. Remove can't and no from your vocabulary. And I'm going to say that again. Remove can't and no from your vocabulary. Those are two words that will stop you from taking risks, and it will stop you from becoming a better you. So I'm going to end by saying, take risks, know that you can do whatever you put your mind to, lead by example and with integrity and respect. And again, I want to thank you, Dr. Delphine Rankin and SOS Children Villages of Illinois for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists on behalf of the board, our CEO and the Racial Justice Committee. This has been an amazing day. I didn't think we could top last year, but you know, the chat is just blowing up. There's just so much gratitude and thanks. And so I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, well, my colleague and my co-founder of the Racial Justice Committee, Ms. Kelsey Balk.
Thank you, Delphine. Hello, everyone. I'm Kelsey Balk. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at SOS Children's Villages, Illinois. As Delphine mentioned, she and I co-chair the Racial Justice Committee here together, and we are very excited to be hosting our second annual Women in Leadership Forum here today. I have the honor of thanking all of our speakers here. As you probably know at this point, our first ever Women in Leadership panel was launched last year, and we are so thankful to have last year's panelist, Dr. Jackie Sharp, back here with us again today to provide opening remarks, as well as for providing us with this year's theme of treat your future with respect. This was advice she gave in last year's event, and it really struck a chord. Thank you, Jackie. Angelica, Michelle, Kimberly, Patricia, and Jamie, thank you all so much for your time and for sharing such incredible and insightful stories and advice. Just as a bit of a recap, Dr. Sharp set the stage today by reminding us not to be shy, to network, to be our own best advocates, and to dream beyond our job descriptions. Angelica gave the advice of saying yes to opportunities to open doors, but then to put yourself in the driver's seat and choose which doors you decide to go through. She also commented that respecting your future involves respecting our communities, as well as respecting our mental and emotional futures, not just our career futures. Commissioner Rhee, first of all, congratulations on the adoption of your daughter. Jamie advised us to lead by example and spoke of the importance of mentorship to help guide that fire and drive of the younger generations. She advised to get out of our comfort zones, take risks, and to take opportunities to learn. That operating with honor and integrity is more important than experience, as skills can be learned. She also advised that she treats feedback as a democracy and recommends getting ideas from everywhere and everyone, and to continually educate yourself as well as your teams. Kimberly spoke of the importance of knowing your why. In regards to addressing the stigma around diversity and inclusion, that stigma can only live to the degree that people in the room allow it to. We need to challenge instances of injustice head on and in the moment, not to wait. She advised us to use our voices and to find allies, and to use their voices as well. She also advised that you don't need to have it all planned out, just your next step, and that you can always adjust or even leave if the situation changes. She encourages us to fail, and that we don't need to be perfect, but to build an almost perfect support network to help us along the way. Michelle agreed and said we owe it to our future selves to put in the work now, make mistakes, and not compare your journey to others. She spoke about motivating herself and her teams by knowing and communicating the why, and by putting relationships at the core of all your actions. And Patricia advised that taking on more responsibilities at work is an investment in yourself, in your career, and your character. She advised to take advantage of ways to educate yourself and that there are many free opportunities to take advantage of. She also spoke of creating allies through finding commonalities and to start small and build big. And Delphine, I loved your own words saying it is not Women's Month, but it is Women's Time. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Everyone spoke of challenges they've experienced, and I'm sure everyone viewing it today can relate, but everyone also spoke of facing those challenges head on and all the immense progress that can be made together. This is a recurring theme for us, and that's why we are all here today. We're all working towards making change happen and to create a more just and equitable future for those who come after us. In addition to the amazing work you all do at your respective organizations, I also want to highlight and thank you for the work you're doing in the communities, including the support of our mission here at SOS Children's Villages, Illinois. If anyone is interested in learning more about today's panelists, about our organization, or about our Racial Justice Committee, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my contact information in the chat. And I also wanted to let everyone know that we will have a recording of this event made available. When it's ready, it will be posted on our website and our LinkedIn page. If you have questions, would like the recording sent to you, or if you would like to offer any other feedback, please feel free to contact me directly. Again, we appreciate all of your time here today. Our wonderful speakers, Angelica, Michelle, Kimberly, Patricia, and Jamie, Delphine, and Jackie, and to everyone here for attending today. Thank you. Enjoy your day. I hope you are all inspired and go out and do something to make a positive change.
Thank you.